Afternoon, everybody. Um, I got a comment from Alex Esgate about, Dan, can you do a vid on the difference in pay and whatnot between New Zealand and the States? And so, Alex, the best way I can explain it as far as the differences here is like you'll see a lot of extraction done old school. Either grapple yarder or guys that are North Bend or South Bend or just plain up pole locking. And there's some dudes that are using sky cars here. I don't know exactly what the percentage, like if you broke it up, how many percent of guys use old school rigging methods to like motorized carriages and whatnot. But my understanding is that more people use just plain old school rigging than they do motorized carriages, and then like grapple yarding as well. And then as far as like ground based logging, it's, to my understanding, like in this area, mostly dozer, and some guys use skidders, but because of the ground conditions, you really don't get much done most of the time unless you've got a dozer with either a grapple or an arch on it for pulling cable. And our OH&S is just unreal. Like for high vis, everybody on site has to wear high visibility clothing at all times, and hard hats on immediately after you leave a machine. They've got some they've got safe areas that you have to be in when people come on site. Visitors have to be signed in, and each job we go to has a hazard sheet that shows what the on-site hazards are. Each person that comes on site has to read the sheet, understand it, and then sign a visitor log. And each person that works on site has to sign the sheet and then sign it in their own handwriting. You've got to, let's see, for processing areas, people have to stand 70 meters away from me for chain shot, for starters. And when you're extracting with a feller buncher or shovel logging, people on the ground have to be 2 tree lengths away in case something happens. The same thing with tree felling. You've got to be 2 tree lengths away from a tree feller. And for, trying to think what else, if a machine's loading a truck, you've got to stand 6 meters away from the machine at all times. Same goes for truck drivers and everything. You've got to have signs up on your road going into your job. The first one would be like a speed limit sign. The next one is a sign with a caution that shows logging operations. And then the next one after that would be like tree felling ahead. And then the next one is a stop sign that has like a box next to it with a radio, and people that show up on site have to call in and get in touch with an operator to actually enter the job site. And tree felling is really difficult here because of their OH&S. Tree fellers have to go through a really strenuous program to get certified to fell trees here, and you are constantly being scrutinized for the manner in which you fell. Guys will come out and check your stumps to make sure that your cuts are where they're supposed to be at, and that you're not having not leaving, let's see here, how do I explain it? Make sure that you have enough holding wood. They use they call it I'm trying to think of what the term is for it. They put wing cuts in, so when you're putting your back cut, if the tree's leaning, if the tree's leaning this way, you would cut into the side and then knock a wedge in, and then you'd come over, and on the other side you would come up and you'd meet in with your first back cut, and then cut the rest of the way so that your wedge is holding up the tree from wanting to go, you know, towards the lean, like say if you want it to go the opposite direction. And I don't see anybody here use a normal back cut like I'm used to in the States, where you just come straight in and then you put a wedge in, tap, saw, and then keep on pounding on it until the tree goes over. They use way different tree felling methods here. So that's another thing. All machine operators, anybody that drives a yarder, log truckers, dudes that like processing logs, did I already say it, loading trucks, dudes that work on the skid like as a chaser, rigging men, hook tenders, everybody has to get certification through a system called Competens. That's one of them. And you've got to do booklets. You have to have a trainer come out on site and they test your knowledge on what you know about rigging, for instance, and whistle signals, road changes. And to get a job here in New Zealand, you have to have a company that's willing to train you through Competens or one of those other type of job training programs, or you have to have the tickets, or else you can't work in the forest industry here. So for me, since I've only been on a processor for 2 weeks before I came down here, the company that I work for, they had to register me with Competens and have an assessor come out, and they start me from ground level as though I've never been in the woods before. And I have to fill out booklets on my knowledge of forestry operations. I've got to do booklets on environmental protection stuff, cultural heritage protection, and yeah, just basic forestry practices before I can even do a booklet, for instance, on like wheeled or tracked machines in forestry. And then at some point I would need to do a course on log making that tests my competency for making logs. And it's the OH&S here in New Zealand is unreal for forestry workers, and I think it's kind of across the board for people that work in like sawmills or carpentry or construction. They are real hardcore about making sure that people that are in the business know exactly what they're doing, so that they don't have any people floating around, I suppose, that would make logging more dangerous than it already is. But that's just my speculation on it based on what I've seen. So yeah, a whole different ball game down here. I've basically started out as a greenhorn because the practices used down here are so much different than what I'm used to in the States. And as far as pay goes, the New Zealand dollar is worth 72 cents to the American dollar. So we just worked this out last week to take money back, like say to pay on a house or or whatever. If we took $5,000 back to the US, we would get $3,660 back. So yeah, there's a real big difference in the exchange rate. And then as far as like your wages, you're looking at anywhere between $19 to $35 an hour, depending on what the guy's doing. Like, I think a normal processor operator would probably be getting between 28 and probably 35 an hour, just depending on experience. I'm kind of in between there because I've got some experience doing other stuff, but like this isn't really my specialty. I'm more into cable logging. That's my passion. But yeah, and then like a skiddy, the guy that would be marking up logs and cutting, trimming, and like taking care of making sure that your timber is all within spec that you send out. I believe you're looking at probably $22 an hour, 25, somewhere in there. And average operator across the board would probably, from what I've seen, be somewhere between, yeah, like in that 28 to 30 range, somewhere in there. And then you have a certain amount taken out for healthcare, I believe, and it's a little bit different for me because I'm from out of country, so they treat me differently on that regard. But trying to think if there's anything else. Of course, you're driving on the other side of the road and the other side of the vehicle. So if I stayed here for more than a year, I'd have to get a New Zealand driver's license. And trying to think if there's anything else about the industry. Oh, we've got to do a tailgate meeting every morning and sign a sheet that what we're doing for the day. Like, for instance, ours has blocks for machines. So Valmet 475, forwarder, Hitachi loading machine, feller buncher, chainsaw, skidder, goes down the line, and each person has to sign in the box what they're doing for the day, print their name, then sign it. And then if you've got a tree feller on site, a person hand felling, they have to put in a comment box down below exactly where they're tree felling at. They have to call in every fuel up, or if not, I think it's like every hour, where they're at, and make sure that everybody's aware that the person's still working, that they haven't got hurt. So they carry a radio with them. And if they're ever driving trees, like they've got one hung up and they have to drive another tree into it to make it go down, he has to call in the drive, and I have to mark down a piece of paper what time the drive was and put in a sheet for later. All that has to be documented so that when we have an audit, which is every 2 weeks, that we've got your occupational health and safety audits like every 2 weeks. So you got to have everything in order with that, or you can get in big trouble. So yeah, it's different, and I definitely miss I miss how we do things in the States. Just because everybody knows what they're doing, they go out and do it, and you don't have to, you're accountable, but you don't have to be accountable to outside agencies constantly like you are here. So it's been a good exercise for me, but it's been pretty difficult as well, getting used to just the differences. Yeah, so anyhow, that's the story down here, and if I think of anything else, I'll put up another video sometime. Yeah, so anyhow, if you all out there are watching this and you're new to this channel and you like what you see, please hit the subscribe button and the bell on the end, and you'll get all my updates. Leave a comment at the bottom. Please give me a thumbs up if you like the content, and if there's something in particular you want to see, go ahead and hit me up in the comments. And if you don't already have these dudes on your subscriptions, you gotta check out West Coast Logging, Alex Esgate, and Stump Jumper Videos, Logger Wade, GNS Logging, SWNO2, Fox Pine, Tax Me I'm Canadian, Jimmy Legs 75, and I've got a whole heap of other dudes on there, on my subscriptions list. Check out on my YouTube page. It's in the left-hand corner, or sorry, right-hand corner, as you're looking at the screen. It's my top subscriptions. Those are the dudes. Check them out. Subscribe to them. They got great videos. Always putting out good content. And the rest of the people on my subscriptions list that I haven't added to my top subscriptions yet, they put out great stuff as well. So I appreciate you being here. Thanks for watching, and have a great day. Bye now.